Okay, so today I'm going to read the lesson from my graduate study at Northern University. English for specific purposes, Lecture 3, ESP as a learner-centered approach. Lecturer Professor Bid O.C. Juvalagar. The learning-centered approach. Student-centered learning, also known as learner-centered education, broadly encompasses methods of teaching that shift the focus of instruction from the teacher to the student. In a student-centered learning space, students choose what they will learn, how they will learn, and how they will assess their own learning. It is obvious from above that ESP is a new learner-centered approach. This notion requires further specification, at least in its general sense. A learner-centered approach to learning and teaching sees learning as the active construction of meaning and teaching as the act of guiding, scaffolding, and facilitating learning. This approach considers knowledge as being an ever-changing process, which is built upon the learner's prior experience. A learner-centered approach provides opportunities for students to practice critical and creative thinking, problem-solving, and decision-making. This involves recall, application, analysis, synthesis, prediction, and evaluation, all of which contribute to the development and enhancement of conceptual understandings. A learner-centered approach also encourages students to demonstrate ownership of their ideas and to reflect on and monitor their thinking as they make decisions and take action. In the key learning area of EFL, learning experiences should be adjusted as required to meet the abilities, needs, and interests of individuals and groups of students. This may mean providing different amounts of time, space, and materials, and offering a range of levels and types of support to students. Students may engage in experiences in different ways or make choices from a range of options so that learning is relevant and meaningful. This approach can involve both students and teachers in the design of learning and assessment opportunities and requires negotiation and flexibility. It has been stated that ESP is an approach to language teaching in which all decisions as to syllabus content and methods are based on the learner's reasons for learning. Though the needs for using English are varied, all learners need to use a specific area of the English language in the shortest term possible. After identifying a target situation, the need for a specific segment at school, the learners' needs have to be identified and their current situation and the target situation must also be analyzed. Additionally, learners' potentials require to be identified as well as the skills and knowledge needed to attain the target situation without losing sight of such constraints as aptitude, time, and technical resources. With this latter in mind, a course is designed and the materials are then chosen and organized. Finally, evaluation is a very important tool so that learning strategies can be redefined and results improved. This is the outline of a learning centered approach. Yeah, section 1 it is the question of what is ESP. And section 2, it is the course design. And section 3, it is application. And section 4, it is the teacher. So these are in consideration. A needs analysis reveals that the ESP learners need English in order to be able to read text in their subject's specialism. They have no need to write, read, and listen to English. Their sole need is to read English text. For examples, only reading, methodology, tasks involving other skills, resources, use of mother tongue, students' motivation, students' lives. Let's talk about the origins of ESP. According to Hutchinson and Waters, 1987, there are three common reasons to the emergence of all ESP. It is the demands of New World, a revolution in linguistics, and focus on the learner. The co-authors note that two key historical periods breathed life into ESP. First, the end of the Second World War brought with an age of enormous and unprecedented expansion in scientific, technical, and economic activity on an international scale for various reasons, most notably the economic power of the United States in the post-war world. The role of international language fell to English. Second, the oil crisis of the early 1970s resulted in Western money and knowledge flowing into the oil-rich countries. The language of this knowledge became English. The general effect of all this development was to exert pressure on the language teaching profession to deliver the required goods. Whereas English had previously decided its own destiny, it now became subject to the wishes, needs, and demands of people other than language teachers. The other key reason cited as having a tremendous impact on the emergence of ESP was a revolution in linguistics. Whereas traditional linguists set out to describe the features of language, revolutionary pioneers in linguistics began to focus on the ways in which language is used in real communication. One significant discovery was in the ways that spoken and written English vary. In other words, given the particular context in which English is used, the variant of English will change. The idea was taken one step further. If language in different situations varies, then tailoring language instruction to meet the needs of learners in specific context is also possible. Hence, in the late 1960s and the early 1970s, there were many attempts to describe English for science and technology, EST. Hutchinson and Waters, 1987, Swales, 1980, and Selinker and Taron, 1981, are identified among the few of the prominent descriptive EST pioneers. The final reason Hutchinson and Waters cite as having influenced the emergence of ESP is related to the psychology of learning. rather than simply focusing upon the method of language delivery. More attention was given to the ways in which learners acquire language and the differences in the ways language is acquired. Learners were seen to employ different learning strategies, use different skills, enter with different learning schemata, and be motivated by different needs and interests. Therefore, focus on the learner's needs became equally paramount as the methods employed to disseminate linguistic knowledge. Designing specific courses to better meet these individual needs was a natural extension of this thinking. To this day, the catchword in ASL circles is both learner-centered and learning-centered. In this way, teachers should follow students' target situation needs and learning needs by focusing on the systems, procedures, and products that are at the heart of what the students do in English to be able to deduce from this knowledge the language needs of each type of learners. The discussion is meant to clarify the fact that ESP should not be considered as a product of language analysis. Rather, it should be seen as an approximation to meet the needs of the learners. In this respect, Wilson affirms that ESP is simply a matter of describing a particular area of language and then using this description as a course specification to impart to learners the necessary restricted competence with this particular area. Key notions of ESP. The following sections present the three key issues of: first, the distinction between the absolute and variable characteristics of ESP. 2. Types of ESP. 3. The characteristics of ESP courses. Then the discussion describes the benefits of ESP courses. Taxonomies of ESP. Different taxonomies of ESP are offered by different educationalists. For example, Davis Carver identifies three types of ESP. English as a restricted language. English for academic and occupational purposes. English with specific topics. The language used by air traffic controllers or by waiters are examples of English as a restricted language. Mackay and Mountford clearly illustrate the difference between restricted language and language with this statement. The language of international air traffic control could be regarded as special in the sense that the repertoire required by the controller is strictly limited and can be accurately determined situationally, as might be the linguistic needs of a dining room waiter or air hostess. However, such restricted repertoires are not language, just as a tourist phrasebook is not grammar. Knowing a restricted language would not allow the speaker to communicate effectively in novel situations or in context outside the vocational environment. The second type of ESP identified by Carver is English for academic and occupational purposes. In the 3 of ELT, Hutchinson and Waters, 1987, ESP is broken down into 3 branches. 1. English for Science and Technology, EST. 2. English for Business and Economics, EBE. 3. English for Social Studies, ESS. Each of these subject areas is further divided into 2 branches: English for academic purposes, EAP, and English for occupational purposes, EOP. An example of EOP for the EST branch is the English for technicians, whereas an example of EAP for the EST branch is English for medical studies. Hutchinson and Waters note that there is not a clear-cut distinction between EAP and EOP, since people can work and study simultaneously. It is also likely that in many cases the language learned for immediate use in a study environment will be used later when the student takes up or returns to a job. Perhaps this explains Carveris' rationale for categorizing EAP and EOP under the same type of ESP. It appears that Carveris is implying that the end purpose of both EAP and EOP are one and the same. It is employment. However, despite the end purpose being identical, the means taken to achieve the end is very different indeed. One can contend that EAP and EOP are different in terms of focus on Cummins. Notions of cognitive academic proficiency versus basic interpersonal skills. The third and final type of ESP identified by Carver is English with specific topics. Carver notes that it is only here where emphasis shifts from purpose to topic. This type of ESP is uniquely concerned with anticipated future English needs of, for example, scientists requiring English for postgraduate reading studies, attending conferences, or working in foreign institutions. Rather, it is an integral component of ESP courses or programs which focus on situational language. The situational language has been determined based on the interpretation of results from needs analysis of authentic language used in target workplace settings. We have the 3 of ELT and we have already described it. Categories of ESP. Many researchers have discussed about the types of ESP, and most of them have grouped ESP into 2 main categories. First, English for occupational purposes, EOP, and second, English for academic purposes, EAP. Rationale behind the ESP approach to language teaching. The rationale of the ESP about students is that they are usually studying English to carry out a particular role, such as foreign and also native people, in particular disciplines, areas of study, at work, occupations, and different situations. Okay, so that is all about lecture 3 of English for specific purposes, and the topic is ESP as a learner-centered approach. Okay, thank you for your attention, and see you in the next lecture. Enjoy your day, everyone. Bye.